Welcome back to our Oda Shogunate. When we left off, we had subjugated Korea. They now serve us. We'd also found the way to move our capital around in order to release colonies. We have our colony of Araska up in Alaska. We've got our colony of Snowy Place over in Siberia. And we have our colony of, let me try and not butcher this, Yakujan over in Australia. We've actually nearly colonized all of Australia. There's just a few provinces / locations left to colonize. So it'd be nice to get that ticked off. We still have our truce with the Ming, which is going to last until 1548. So we have about 9 years before we have to fight them again. This will likely be a big conflict. We're going to use the takedown hegemony CB and we'll try and take as much land from them as we can. We can, of course, also take the Mandate of Heaven, but taking the Mandate of Heaven is based on their population, and Ming has a very big population right now, which means it's going to be very expensive to take the Mandate. So I'd prefer to chip away at them first before thinking about taking the Mandate. We've also reached a point where we've got colonies on the west coast. Are any of these very close to finishing? Yes, actually, this one here is at 92%, so we should think about moving our capital once again so that we can release a colony there. In fact, let's do it right now. Let's move our capital down to our little outpost in Australia. Then we can release our colony on the west coast. I do feel like continuously moving my capital around is, of course, negatively affecting my economy, but there's not much I can really do about it. It's either that or not release colonies. And in a way, keeping the colonies would also negatively impact my economy. Speaking of which, let's take a look at our estate privileges. The nobles are still powerful. They're actually a little more powerful than I'd like them to be. I would like to bring them down towards 25 if we could. The main thing I would revoke from them at this point is primacy of the nobility, but I feel like we're probably going to need the extra 5 discipline, right? We could also revoke noble navies. At this point, I believe our naval value is very high. It's not quite at 100% though. We could try and push it all the way up to max. And noble navies does reduce the cost of our galleys, our maintenance, so it's probably better to keep it for the moment. Are there any privileges we've handed out we want to revoke from anyone else? Probably not. I guess we could revoke this strength in the faith because it reduces our tolerance of heretics and heathens, but not by much. We are at 100% communalism though, so there isn't much value for us gaining communalism from these various privileges. It does block the open institution policy, but I don't tend to take that policy anyway. Maybe I should though for the institution growth, but I think we're fine without it. Are there any privileges we should give out? Yeah, it looks like we should give out religious diplomats and embellish great works just to try and strengthen the clergy further. We could give them tax exemptions, but we've reached the point where we can tax our clergy and have them still remain at 100% satisfaction, so there's no reason to not tax them at this point. As long as they stay at that 100%, you can use these little buttons to dictate how much you want the estate satisfaction to sit at. We've of course got the clergy set to 100%. There are a few advances here we should revoke though, like access to ecclesiastical courts, because we are at 100% communalism and that decreases the happiness of the clergy. Is there anything else? Actually, yeah. I don't remember giving partial yield out, but it reduces our maximagio size, so we definitely want to get rid of that. In fact, let's get rid of both of those right now. It is going to weaken the peasantry a little, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Is there anything we want to give out? I guess we could give out commoners in the administration to make up for it. Is there anything else? I don't think so. Let's give out commoners in the administration. Let's also give out embellishing of great works, and we'll also give out religious diplomats. We'll then slap the clergy for 50 in legitimacy, pushing us up to where we want to be, and we'll slap the peasants for an extra 20 stability. It did make them very unhappy, but I'm sure we'll be fine. We'll also slap the burghers for around 900 gold. We need it more than they do. Our capital is now over in Australia. Luckily, this colony looks like it's going to finish in a few days, so we should be able to very quickly move back to Japan. We'll have to accept that all our local governors, of course, are going to explode, and there's nothing we can really do to stop that. Sad, I know. But here we go, we finished this colony, so we'll create a new colonial subject. We'll also give them all of the land we currently have over in the west coast. We want to make sure that we're only giving them west coast territory. We'd hate to cross the streams and ruin our neat borders, right? When it comes to the name for this new colony, I believe I wrote something down. Let me just check. Yep, here we have Fasol, or maybe Fasolshu. I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation, but that's what we'll name our colony here in the west coast, aka California, though it does include Cascadia, as we can see. We'll continue working our way down the coasts. We've also got the Great Plains over here. It's going to be a while before we probably reach it. We'll need to think of a name for that. And I'm sure there's a Canada up here somewhere. We'll just have to see how things go. Since we've done that, we can now move our capital back to Japan. So let's head on back. And in that moment, our ruler dies, being replaced by his son, Nishiki Oda, who hasn't actually had many children. I think we didn't have many women to marry him to, or they were all quite old. Hopefully he produces some more offspring. Although I suppose it's fine, he's got his Harunobu as his potential heir, and if he does end up not having children, he has his many brothers, who I'm sure will be willing to step into the role if need be. We're back in Japan. We'll of course need to rebuild our local governors, also things like our royal court. It looks like our royal garden may have survived. A little strange. We'll need to rebuild our sergeantary though. I do wish local governors just turned off if your capital moved. That way I wouldn't have to rebuild them every single time, and they would just, go into an off position until our capital eventually moves back round. I think that'd be a lot more reasonable than just having them vanish, essentially. We've completed our first annexation. We actually gained around 5,000 ducats from integrating these guys, it looks like. We're actually going to throw down a naval governor here so we can actually profit from this land. It is quite valuable, so we'll do just that. We'll then think about moving on and integrating someone else. They have, of course, had a drop in their relationships with us from us integrating somebody, so we'll work on improving our relationships. Hopefully it won't take too long and we can start the integration process of somebody else relatively quickly. Let's also make sure to accept Korean culture. We actually have a lot of cultural capacity because there hasn't really been anyone for us to accept. We are accepting some Chinese cultures, though we don't actually have any of them in our territory at the moment. So Korean would be a good addition. We'll of course not like the Koreans, that way they'll get integrated faster, but for now there's definitely no reason for us not to tolerate them. Our CB on the Ming is about to expire as planned, so we're going to need to recreate it. Hopefully we can get it before our truce expires, but I don't think they have enough antagonism to form a coalition against us. I might increase their relationship with me a little just to make sure of that. But let's get that takedown hegemony CB in preparation for our truce expiring. Our truce with the Ming has expired. Hopefully they don't attack us. Our hegemony CB comes online in 8 months, so we should be in a good position to attack them. We've at least got some positive manpower income, so we can at least maintain our standing army. We're of course building more and more armories. We're making quite a bit of money now from teleporting back to Japan. One thing we're going to do is we're going to have all of our vassals set to scootage for the moment. I think we may call in the Koreans once the war begins. I would like the Ming to come up here and start sieging all these forts and lose a lot of manpower there before we start fighting them in earnest. Navy-wise, they don't really have anything. They have 4 heavy ships. To be fair, we have 0, but Korea has 29. So if we just call the Koreans in, they should be able to deal with the enemy heavy ships pretty easily. Let's actually begin annexing somebody before we start the war. We'll annex these guys. They're ready to begin annexation. All right, there's our CB. Should we declare war right now? Is there a reason to delay? Is there something I'm waiting for? I don't think so. So we'll declare war. We're of course not bringing Wu in. Let me just make sure we're not. No. The only people we're bringing in are the Korean colonies or Korean vassals we have that don't border Ming. We can call in Wu and Korea itself at a later date. For now, we'll start the war. We'll call up our levies. We have 350,000 of them. Not enough to match the Ming, but they may be useful when it comes to sieging down their territory, or bulking out our numbers if we get to that point, of course. It's entirely possible we won't reach that point. We'll remain passive for now. Let's watch what the Ming do. Our number one goal is, of course, to thin them out. If we're going to make headway, we need to kill a lot of them. Hopefully the Ming help facilitate that by going to die on all those snowy northern forts. One thing we can do, because the Ming can enter Korean territory, is we can just pop out, kill any Ming soldiers that are on the border, and then just pop back into Korea. They can't pursue us or anything, so there's nothing to really stop us doing this. Sadly, it looks like the Ming don't really want to come and siege our forts. They're sending their vassals to do it for them, which I suppose isn't the end of the world. They will of course take attrition and eventually be ground down, but I really wanted the Ming army to come up. Our vassals are also crossing Korea and invading Ming. Not quite what I had in mind, but I suppose it might be useful to lure them in. We can actually see a lot of the Ming army is just massing on the border with Wu. We don't plan to call Wu in though. With this in mind, I think it's time we call in Korea. Before we do actually, let's bring over our 300k of levies over to Korea instead of having them sit over in Japan. There is a risk that the Ming try and navally invade us. They've lost most of their navy though. In fact, they only have 2 light ships left. I didn't destroy them, so one of our vassals must have done the work of getting rid of them. Alright, our levies are over here in Korea. Let's actually separate them out a bit so they're not in these massive stacks. It is quite hard commanding this many units. It's very unwieldy, but we'll do our best. We can see that they're actually massing on the Korean border now. Let's see if we can't mass up here as well. What would really be nice is if we could jump out and eliminate that 100k. Chances are unlikely though. We're really going to be relying on the Korean forts. Although, does Korea even have any forts? Did they demolish all of them? Looks like they've got some down here. They've turned off though. They don't have enough tools to properly maintain them. Foolish Koreans. I'm sure it'll be fine though. We're actually going to pop out and try and eliminate this 100k with our 300k. Let's see how it goes. A pretty bloody battle. Not as great for us as I would like to have hoped, but a win's a win. Let's pull back within the Korean border and now we'll call in Korea to support us. We're of course going to fight defensively and try and lure the Ming soldiers into Korea where we can potentially destroy them. If we're really lucky, we'll do enough casualties to Ming that their war exhaustion will reach 100%, aka 20, and then they will capitulate. We also have Wu as backup if things go well or poorly. We could call them in to help us on the backside. Let's bring our navy round and start blockading as many of their ports as we can since they don't have any ships. They have a total of 5, 2 galleys, 3 heavy ships. There's a lot of potential for us to blockade ports and help drive up their war exhaustion that way. For now, we'll use our regulars to pop out, maybe grab some of these armies. Yep, excellent. And then we'll just retreat back behind the border. If we do this enough, eventually we'll wear them down. Surely. Scattering our army around the Chinese coast also will give us vision of the area so we can see what exactly they're plotting. We can see they're pretty much sending their whole army up, which could work to our advantage as long as we're fighting smartly. One of the issues though, of course, is we do need our allies/vassals to also fight smartly, and they're not experts on that style of fighting. Alright, I think we're winning. We've got them down to 670,000. The Koreans have actually called up mercenaries and are sending them into the fray. I've pulled back a little. We're actually taking some attrition damage due to the winter. So let's actually head to some better locations where we won't be negatively impacted by the cold. But we are wearing the Ming down. At one point they were sending hundreds of thousands into these territories, which is why I pulled back because I thought they were going to go for a big offensive, which they kind of were. They have sent armies up to start sieging our territories up here, but they're taking quite a lot of attrition due to the winter and our asymmetrical warfare. In fact, they've lost nearly 200k due to attrition so far, which is excellent of course. In a way, it's kind of tempting to leave things to the Koreans since they are using mercenaries. It's kind of tempting to sit things out and let them and their mercenaries do the fighting and dying. At the same time though, we kind of need to be capitalizing. Ooh, look at that. The Ming are now pulling up their own mercenaries. That's one of the things I was really scared of because the Ming are going to be able to field a lot of mercenaries, right? Far more than we can really hope to manage or counter effectively. I suppose it's a good sign because it means they feel that their levy armies just aren't doing it, so they've had to resort to such measures. Still not something I'm happy to see though. I am happy to see them running into the Koreans and getting annihilated though. We've actually won enough battles that we have positive war score. It's kind of crazy to see, but we've got them down to less than 500k at this point. We still need to keep fighting obviously, and the fact that they can bring in mercenaries does make things a little less successful than they might ordinarily be, due to their ability to just replace their lost soldiers with mercenaries. But it is still positive. We've brought them down to 250k. We're actually at a point where we could make a peace deal now. We've kind of been caught out of position here though by a mercenary stack. We just wiped away a few enemy armies, but it looks like they're going to catch us here and we're probably going to lose, sadly. If we made peace right now, what exactly could we demand? Their war enthusiasm is at 0, so that's not going to stop them accepting a peace. We could actually take quite a lot of territory. What territory would we like to take? We of course want to take their most valuable land, which for China is usually in this area. So if we just start grabbing land in this very profitable area, how much could we take? If we really fought the war out as much as we could take a lot of territory. We would need much higher war score than we currently have though. And we of course can't take their capital because we haven't occupied it and we're unlikely to occupy it, right? Access is also an issue though. Could we get down to these territories in the south? Kind of. We would need more war score than we currently have, but we could take something like this and take a large portion of their coast and bring us straight into China. This could be beneficial because we could heavily fort up these areas and fight the Chinese defensively in them. We're not grabbing Beijing though, which is kind of sad. Maybe we should specifically grab it, though it's not too valuable of a location. The real question I have is, how much war score are we going to lose from losing this fight? There's a risk it could annihilate our regular army as well. I think we're going to take the fight. The worst thing that happens is a month has successfully passed, so our regulars replenished a little. Also, the enemy's losing a bit of morale moving in. Oh, they've decided not to. Okay. Now they've changed their mind and they're coming back. Will we win? It doesn't. Nope, it doesn't like it. Luckily, our regulars weren't destroyed though, so we can just replenish them and bounce back. As we've established though, we are very close to being able to force out a peace deal where we take a lot of territory. We just need to win a good few battles. We're 12 points away. Maybe we should call in Wu at this point. They're down to 200,000 men. Where are the 200,000? That's the question, right? Are they on the border with Wu? Actually, it doesn't look like anyone's on the border with Wu. You know what? Let's call Wu in. Even if they just go and sit on the enemy capital, that might be enough to make them surrender. And what I tell you, just a few moments of the Wu being in the war and sieging some of their locations down, and the Ming have had enough. We're going to take this. It's not perfect for defeating the Ming. The best thing to do would be just take vast swathes of territory in this region. But I want to take this land because it gets us a physical connection down to them. And I don't plan to release any more vassals. So I want to call this land directly for us. There we go, war over. Billions dead on both sides. Much more on their side than on ours though. And now we've stretched down into China. Now all of China knows you're here. We're of course going to need to dedicate a lot of our cabinet seats to coring now. There's a lot of territory here that needs to be cored, and we'd very much like it to be cored. We could return some of the territory that, say, belongs to Korea here, but I don't plan to. We'll keep it for ourselves. There is the bit of land that Wu has cores on. We should probably return that to them. Wu has been helpful and loyal so far, so we should reward their loyalty, right? But only the minimum. That will only give them what they currently have cores on. Everything else we'll keep for ourselves. It's likely we'll experience a few revolts here. We'll have to see if we can keep them in check. Another thing I've been thinking about is, of course, our capital. Now that we're in China proper, it's probably a lot better to move our capital into China and then use our naval governors. We currently have 2, and there's a third one that we gain access to, I think, in the Age of Discovery that we haven't yet gotten. Maybe it's not. No, there it is. So yes. So we could use the 3 naval governors we would eventually get to increase control in Japan, and then use our capital plus local governors, of which we have 3, to increase control in China. It would definitely be the smarter play, I think, to move over to China. But we, of course, need to get more Chinese land first before I think we can make that move. So we'll hold off for the moment. We'll just focus on coring our Chinese territory first of all. We'll also need to actually take a city in China worthy of being our capital. We'll probably take Nanjing. I guess we could use Beijing as the capital, but it's not much of a capital at the moment. It hasn't even got 100,000 pops. Nanjing's a much better capital since it's very much in the profitable area of China, and it's not too far off having enough population to reach the final tier of urban location. There goes our shogun. He's been replaced by Harunobu III. Does he have any good children? Not really seeing any prodigies. He has quite good admin though. Definitely nice to get a higher admin ruler. Reduces the cost of building buildings and increases our crown power. How long before our truce ends with China or the Ming? We have 8 years. We do have a CB on them that I've just fabricated, and that doesn't expire until after the truce ends, so we should be in a good position to attack them immediately. They've of course bounced back pretty easily from the losses they sustained in the previous war. I am fort maxing in our territory so that we can potentially bleed them out in the ensuing conflict. In fact, should we get rid of all the forts we have up here now? Perhaps we should. Having this massive amount of forts is of course a bit of a drain on the economy, but having so many forts is beneficial because it gives us a lot of control over how the battles play out. But I think, yes, we'll delete most of the ones we have up here in Manchuria now. The enemy are unlikely to really get to them. I think we'll keep 1 or 2 just as a potential distraction. But by having these forts, the enemy will of course take attrition, but it means we can pick and choose the battles we like, because the enemy tends to spread themselves out across the forts, allowing us to pick them off, which is a lot more appealing than having them just blanket siege us. Or at least that's what I tell myself to justify my choices. I mean, it worked pretty well in the Korean War. The thing is, in the Korean War, it was Korean forts they were sieging. And as we know, Koreans have better fort defense than we do, due to all of their modifiers. Our forts lack a lot of those modifiers. Sadly, printing presses finally made it over to our country, so we'll embrace that immediately. Even though we do have a lot of tech to research, it's going to be quite fast researching them because they're in the previous era, which reduces the time it takes to research them. So we'll do so as quickly as possible. It's still going to be quite a while before we get access to pike and shot and the New World, funnily enough, despite us being one of the biggest colonizers in the New World, I like to imagine. We're trying to work on getting our relationship up with the Mamluks so that they could start spreading the institutions to us. Unfortunately, they consider us a great power, which is one of the things that's stopping us befriending them too much. It's something we'll just have to work on. On a rather unrelated note, we've colonized parts of California, so I'm going to rename a location. I think this one. This is the one that's actually about to become a town in this province. We could have renamed a was, but I kind of like the idea of keeping a was around. So we'll rename this one. We're going to rename it after all around our guy Mitsunari Ishida, or Ishida Mitsunari. In fact, we're going to call it New Sawayama in honor of said Mitsunari. In fact, this would be a quite good capital for our Californian colony. Is it connected to any rivers? Yes, actually it is. Not the biggest river imaginable, but a river. And due to its high harbour capacity, that being a whopping 1, it's a better harbour than anywhere in Japan. It would make quite a good capital. We would need to fully colonise the area first, though. It wouldn't be much good increasing control in this uncolonised territory, right? Something that's nice to be aware of, though. The truce ends with Ming in about 2 years, and once it does, we should immediately jump them. As usual, there is no reason for us to delay. One thing I would like to do is build another army. The problem is the manpower cost, really. We definitely wouldn't be able to sustain another army due to the cost in our manpower, but even so, I'm hesitating a little. It'd be very nice to have a second army to fight with of regular units. Speaking of which, one thing I keep periodically doing is coming over and slapping the tribes for some extra manpower. It does upset them a little, but you know, they might as well hand their manpower to us, same with the burghers with their gold. But having another army might be worth having less manpower. I mean, what's the point of manpower, right? It might as well be soldiers. Is it time that we start incorporating cannons? I don't think so. We still only have access to like the very beginning form of cannon. And it's not like we actually took any castles in that last fight, and I doubt we'll take any now, right? We'll probably just fight battles and win them, hopefully, instead of sieging anything down. We can't quite afford to make this army. I think we're going to issue a government bond to fund it. We can hopefully pay that off after the war, maybe even before if we can rack up the money. Yep, we definitely don't have the manpower to sustain this army, so we're unlikely to be able to maintain it once they start taking casualties. The only solution? More armories. Looks like it's a little too late now though. It's January of 1570, meaning our truce ends in September, so it's time really. Let's turn on our army and our forts. We're losing a bit of money with everything turned on. We can turn down our colonizing a little bit to make some more money. We could also turn down our diplomatic spending. It's sky high at the moment because I'm trying to integrate. We're going to be able to finish integrating this guy in 20 months. As such, I'm kind of fine taking the loss to income, at least until this guy's integrated. Once he's integrated, we can immediately bring down our diplomatic spending. Doesn't really matter if we take a loan or two. I doubt we would. We're not going to be able to absorb all of our money or lose all of it in the few months it's going to take us to annex that one nation. Our truce has expired. Let's immediately attack the Ming. We're actually going to bring in everyone, not our colonies obviously, but actually Wu. Do we want Wu in? I don't think we do. They'll open a front to our side where I haven't actually built castles. So let's put Wu out. We'll bring in all the Korean nations though. There isn't much reason to not bring them in since they're behind our border now. So let's declare war. The Ming still don't have a navy, I believe. Nope, they've got 7 ships, 3 of which are heavy ships, 4 of which are galleys. So there's not much chance for them to do anything of note. As I said, we're going to keep our diplomatic spending up at least until we've annexed that one nation, then we'll bring it down. We're going to see how we perform. One of the problems is we don't have any manpower. I am building armories behind this, but we'll have to wait for them to come into effect before we can actually start gaining a positive manpower income. Even so, we are going to fight. If we see an opportunity to jump out and grab some Ming soldiers, there's no reason to hesitate. Funnily enough, the bubonic plague of all things has resurfaced. It didn't actually hit us last time it came through, or at least I don't remember it affecting us. But the bubonic plague is here, and it's spreading all over China. It might end up benefiting us if it kills vast swathes of them. Problem is, it's also going to kill vast swathes of us. I suppose we'll just have to roll with it and try as much as possible to not be in locations where the plague is currently taking place. We're seeing the benefits of our fort strategy immediately, though. The Ming are spreading their armies wide to siege all these forts. They're of course taking attrition, and we can jump out and just grab the little armies wherever we can and eliminate them. If their armies are very small, our regulars should have no problem just annihilating them in a single fight. We'll have to see if it works for us long term though, especially with the lack of manpower. Allied forces are also coming over and jumping out at the Ming soldiers, which is extra nice. I do have my levy army over in Japan. I'm just hesitating to bring them over at the moment. I want the plague to end. There's not much point of us bringing over our guys if they just all get plagued, right? So we'll keep an eye out for the plague's end and then bring them in once it does. Even if the enemy occupy a few of these forts, it doesn't really matter because they're not really going to be able to staff them, because they can only resupply forts with regulars, and the Chinese don't really have many regulars. I mean, they have 40,000 or so, but they're all scattered around amongst their vast armies. So we could just jump out and liberate any forts that are taken, just with a quick siege or assault. For the moment, though, things are going very well. We've already killed 300,000 of them. There's only 800,000 left. The jumping out, destroying their small armies, and we are stack wiping them as well, because they're so small compared to us. Although we didn't stack wipe those there, proving me wrong immediately. But it's very easy for us to rack up casualties on the enemy here, because their armies are so spread out. There we go, there's the annexation of that other little nation. We can bring down our diplomatic spending now. Although we'll have to be careful that we don't make any of our vassals too rebellious, and we're still losing money even bringing down the diplomatic spending. How sad. We did gain all of their money though. There's also demolished their forts they had. Not much reason for us to have forts at this point, at least back here. There we go, we just needed the month to tick, and now we're once again making money. Lack of manpower is still a problem though, and it's likely not going to stop being a problem. We could start building armories in Korean territory now. We are accepting Korean culture, and we do have a few armories that our vassals built here as well. In fact, has the plague ended? Looks like the plague's pretty much ended over in China, so let's begin ferrying our levy army across. They could help bring things forward. Should we consider bringing the Wu in? I think it's still a little premature to bring the Wu in. I'd like to deal a lot more casualties to the Ming before we consider letting them join. War is hell. Look at them all surrounding us. I've become a little more cautious, specifically because they seem to be parking some armies behind so that they can reinforce, although they're moving. Actually, let's grab this little 2,000 sieging, since they've moved that army out of the position. One annoying thing is we can't reach the southern parts of our territory because they're blocking us here. We need to ferry more troops across, and we are ferrying over as many as we can as fast as possible, but we need to break through this sieger here so we can reach the southern territories. They look like they're doing relatively fine though. I'm sure we'll lose one or two of them, but losing a few forts is a fine loss really. As long as we win in the end, we actually made enough money that we can pay off that government bond as well, so we'll just pay it off now. I do wish those Koreans were more proactive about bringing their soldiers down. A lot of them are just kind of up here sieging the tiny Ming vassals up here. I don't really want that. I'd much rather they come south and actually help. Maybe that's why they don't. I personally would probably avoid whatever's going on down here, if it were me. We've really thinned them out. There's 377,000 left. We don't really match them, but we never matched them, right? We've managed to cut south, and I'm liberating a lot of our forts here. Does look like they're about to jump us here, though, but we can probably win. Nah, let's retreat. A pity, those were big casualties there when I was trying to liberate our forts. We have brought all of our soldiers over to China now, though, so really we just need to win with these last few soldiers, which honestly doesn't sound too insurmountable. We do have to keep an eye out for when they eventually call in mercenaries, and we can always just call in Wu whenever we're ready. Although we may never be ready, you know what I mean? But eventually I will have to bite the bullet and say, Wu, get in here. We probably need and or want your help. This really is a bit of a nail biter. If those Koreans would just come over and help, I suppose it wouldn't make much of a difference. They'd probably just get annihilated. I've become quite scared about jumping out and grabbing people because I keep finding there's very large armies waiting in the wings. Let's count a moment actually. There's 33,000 left. Do we see 33,000 on the battlefield? 2, 4, 6, 8, about 10, so that's 100,000 down there. Then we got 5, 11, so that's 100,000 there. So we're missing 100,000 on their part. Either way, we're going to jump out and grab these guys, and maybe we can grab that 5,000 down there too. Yep, that's them grabbed. Now let's grab these ones. That's perfect. That at least gives us access to the south. We could rescue this fort that's about to be taken. That would be great. Is there anyone very weak down here sieging? I guess there's these guys. They're kind of surrounded by the enemy though. So it'd be a bit risky trying to jump out and grab them. A bit like a trapdoor spider when you think about it. We've actually managed to reach 10 war score. The Ming aren't willing to let us take their entire nation or anything like that though. So we're going to hold off making peace for the moment. If we could make peace, what would we grab? I think something like this would be the ideal. This would take a lot of valuable territory from the Ming. It would result in a lot of antagonism, but mainly with the Ming, Korea, and Yizhao, so I'm not sure I'd be that bothered. It's whether we can get them to accept this. This would leave them fractured because it would cut off their capital, so maybe we would leave that to them and take somewhere else. I guess taking this province would be nice because it means we wouldn't have this tiny choke point to get through for future conflicts. I think something like this would be the ideal. It's whether we can get something like that. Is it time to bring in Wu? We're at 262k on the side of the Ming. I'm just scared that if we bring in the Wu, they'll get stack wiped and reduce our war score. It's not that high to begin with, right? Mainly because they have the ticking war score from us not occupying their capital. And for some reason, the Emperor, who I should probably mention has gone through a few transformations, is currently the Matsui court. They were the Ashikaga at one point. Yes, they were the Ashikaga court at one point. The Yamato dynasty died out a while ago, actually. There are no living Yamatos left, I think. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. But they were taken over by the Uesugi, who has now been taken over by the Matsui clan. In fact, it looks like the Matsui clan is also going to lose because their current ruler is a woman and she's married to this guy of the Endo clan. If I cared enough, I'd try to get an Oda on the throne so it could be the Oda court, but I don't particularly care that much. All right, we're going to do it. Let's call in Wu. I guess we could call up more levies, but I'd rather avoid doing so if possible. Let's call in Wu and see if they can't just flip things for us in these last few moments. There's less than 250,000 of them left, so we just need a few good fights from our Wu friends, and we could definitely win. I mean, we've kind of already won. We just need to force the Ming to accept that they have in fact lost. And it looks like we've done it. Wu's presence really tipped the balance. We've managed to completely destroy nearly the Ming army. I guess we could continue the war and try and occupy their capital. It's actually quite tempting. It's whether they can flip things, right? If they just called up another wave of levies, they'd probably drown us. And I'm not sure I really want to stick around for that potentially to happen. Their capital also isn't that valuable. It's not even making 100 ducats, to be fair. We are fighting right now. And it only has a population of around 100,000. So I wouldn't put much focus on it. Instead, I'd prefer to surround it. It'd be really nice if they kept their capital here so that we can cut it off like we're doing so. And they were forced to get control through this province. Although there is a river here, isn't there, actually? Wait a second. Yes, there is a river here. It's probably better for us to take the river location then. So something like this, so that they would no longer be able to get control downstream. I think we'll go with something like this. We'll take the fort that's here as well, just to really reduce them. And there we go. Another successful war against the Ming. Only cost nearly 100,000 people. But what's a few people when compared to our glory after all? We're likely to have a Sanjiao revolt though. There's just a little too many of them, and they're a little too expensive to buy off. But that's not a huge deal. They're probably going to take a lot of our forts though. Since we're probably going to expand our fort line a little further, let's see if we can't demolish some of these forts. Now, we weren't able to demolish many of them, unfortunately. We're going to have to continue work on coring all this land. In fact, did we take a location that's a city? We did. We took Hangzhou here. We could throw down a local governor here to begin spreading our control into China. Did we take anywhere else? I don't think so. I doubt it. We already controlled the full coast up here and there weren't any cities. So Hangzhou will likely be our only naval governor location for the moment. Let's begin work on integrating another one of those Korean nations. We just need a diplomat. In fact, we have 0, funnily enough. Oh yeah, because we cut spending on diplomatic spending, didn't we? Let's spend on it just so we can get a diplomat. I prefer to keep my diplomatic spending at 0 unless there's a reason for me not to. Same with, say, stability spending. Let's take a little look at Ming's proximity, actually. We probably should have done this before I made peace, but yeah, it looks like we've really cut off control that was spreading from the capital here. It's only kind of reaching here now. And then the local governor down here in Nancheng seems to be what's spreading most of the control. Hypothetically, if we take every city in China, they won't be able to spread control anymore through local governors. That's kind of silly, but it is an interesting idea, isn't it? If we just took every city, we'd definitely crash their control. Something to think about for the next war, I think. We'll begin the integration of this nation as discussed. This is actually our second to last fiefdom. The only other fiefdom we have is, of course, Wu. Once we've annexed all these guys, we probably won't bother with vassals ever again, unless you count colonial nations, and I kind of don't count them as vassals. They're their own separate thing, right? In fact, let's actually integrate 2 nations at once here. It does slow the integration down by 50% for each of them, but even so, we might as well get to it. Yep, here's that Sanjiao revolt. It's annoying but inevitable. We can call in our vassals to help us fight the revolt as well. So we'll call in Wu, we'll call in the Koreans. They'll hopefully make this a quick affair. We are going to have to siege down all of our forts though, which is going to take a while. Although maybe not. It doesn't look like they have very good fort defense. And we have quite good siege ability. Yeah, it looks like they're above their fort limit because they stole all of our forts, which makes sieging down their forts very easy. And there we go, rebels defeated, nice and quick. We have also reached a point now where we're gaining passive manpower. It doesn't look like it right now, but our manpower income is now above our manpower maintenance by almost double, so we'll actually be able to build up a bank of manpower. Probably goes without saying that that is a good thing. At the very least, we can stop spamming armories, at least for the moment. If we want to expand our army further, we'll of course need more armories. Though hopefully we can get around to researching the training field. It's a bit up in the air whether we'll actually gain access to it. We do have access to the new world right now. I'm just researching these last 2 techs here. Once that's done, we'll embrace the new world, not that we really need it, and we can grab some of these techs to help with colonizing. Not that we really need it. We're already doing an immense amount of colonizing. I'd really like to get this maritime presence decay malice though, and this proximity cost through port malice. That will help spread control via maritime presence and keep maritime presence up when our navies go into port to hide from the various wars. We could also get the 3rd naval governor as well, not that we can really use it just yet. We need to get our hands on another port in China, or in Korea. To be fair, even if we did, it's unlikely we would build it. For now though, I think we'll leave things here for today. Let's have a look. Ming's base tax has fallen down to less than 5,000, only at 4,474. Our base tax is currently at nearly 3,000, so we're getting close to matching each other, and I use the term close rather loosely. Over in America, we've also gained access to a new region, I believe, Central America, so we'll need to have a colony for this area. We'll probably just use Mexico, or the native name for Mexico, and make a name off that, unless someone has something better. We still haven't quite got access to the Great Plains yet, so we can't set up a colony there. Are any of these colonies really close to finishing? We have had some of the colonies here finished. They finished during the war. It actually looks like a lot of these are quite far from finishing, so we'll need to wait. There's not much point moving over if a colony's far away from being finished, because then we'll just have to wait for it to be finished anyway. But either way, I'll thank you for watching. Hope you did enjoy this video. I feel like not much happened because I spent so much time fighting those very nail-bitey wars, but at least we gained some land, right? We've expanded into China. You probably doubted whether it was even possible. To be fair, I doubted as well. Looking at those Ming numbers, you know, made me to tug my collar a little bit, but we did it. We're in, and now that we're in, I doubt they can stop us. We'll continue advancing our siege wall as if it's World War I until we no longer need it, and then we'll just conquer them. But either way, enough rambling from me. We'll leave it here. Thank you for watching again, and I'll see you next time.